Chapter 45. Why aren't you shooting anyone? The young tourist had stayed conspicuously close to Antonio since their raid had begun. He hadn't exactly asked to tag along with the recusant agent, but a mutual understanding had developed between Antonio and the fresh-faced newbie. Their excursion, dubbed the 72nd, had gouged their way through the night, the Centurion guards leading them silently through the bogs and moors of this sector of the RMZ to attack various targets. Through the night vision green of their goggles, they'd honed in on some isolated enemy bunkers used as fortifications by small field squads, then lit the snarling darkness with a blaze of small arms and ruination, and beckoned the madness of the night into their company. The image of Perdita kept coming to Antonio's mind, heavily pregnant and hiding, struggling to crouch down with her enormous belly, scared, cradling the bump with one hand whilst shielding herself with the other, begging for mercy. Just as the pre-dawn light crept over the horizon, the excursion had let loose a quick barrage of mortar shells on a medical unit they'd identified. They could have atomized the entire building with one blast, but the Centurions had advised mortars so that survivors fleeing the scene could be picked off. Sure enough, after the mortar fire came the dim figures of exiles escaping the building. In the dawn light, Antonio's mind played tricks on him. He kept seeing Perdita's form in these fleeting silhouettes, though his intel had her a few kilometres to the northeast. The flick of someone's hair, the way they ran, even just their rough height. His mind leapt to every resemblance, and with each crack of a rifle, his nerves unravelled that bit more. He had to find her soon. "I'm preserving ammo," Antonio explained to his new buddy. They picked their way around a customer service rep, dragging a wounded exile onto their knees. The newbie flinched as the rep executed him. "This mission is low-hanging fruit. Gets everyone's blood pumping and they fire off half their rounds." Antonio's patience was wearing thin. "There'll be another target, and these muppets will be short of ammo. They'll be so pumped up they won't think twice about spending a fortune on an extra ammo dump. Save your credits." The newbie flinched again as a jet of fire leapt towards them. A subsonic shield emanating from an unseen drone deflected the flames whilst allowing the enraged insurance agent with the flamethrower to continue his assault. Something behind a bush howled in agony and ran off in a yellow blaze. The newbie did not seem to be enjoying himself. "Sounds like oh dear, that was okay. Yes. Hold fire for now. Good plan." Next to his companion, Antonio looked unruffled. He was anything but. Keeping his feelings in check was taking considerable mental energy. All he wanted was to cut loose from these cretinous tourists and head straight to the recusant camp, blinking on his map. Find Perdita and his son. At some point during the night, Antonio had settled on it being a son. The problem was that an array of combat drones accompanied every excursion to keep the tourists safe. It may have seemed unpredictable, picking through wild country in the dead of night. It was meant to, but each tourist was constantly tracked and monitored. The moment Antonio deviated from the 72nd, they'd be after him, ushering him back, sending Centurions to fetch him, dragging him off if needs be. He'd expected this and prepared a bundle of sepses on his eyeline for when he ditched them. The sepses would infect anything digital in the surrounding area, scramble their tracking, and in the confusion, Antonio could dump the tourists unhindered. But he wouldn't have long. It was a tight window. Excursion companies took tourist safety extremely seriously. The tech they employed was state-of-the-art, and any glitch in the system would receive immediate attention. So Antonio had to bide his time. The 72nd were heading in roughly the right direction anyway, so he traipsed along with them for the time being. But it was taking every ounce of self-restraint he had. It wasn't just Perdita's survival that had Antonio's nerves jumping. The closer he got to her location, the more he dreaded the conversation he knew was coming. How would he persuade her to see the pregnancy through? News of the coming pandemic would shock her, but would it convince her to mother a child? She didn't want a baby. He knew that much. But could he persuade her? And how the hell did one go about such coercion? If Perdita rejected motherhood outright, Antonio supposed he might get her to go full term, then let him parent the child without her, if that's what she wanted. Could he? He'd no idea. Antonio's thoughts were interrupted as a long tour bus swooped down out of the dawn light and roared over him and his nervous new friend. The first bus tour of the day. A floodlight picked out someone on the floor. A man, an exile, sat with the lifeless body of his comrade in his lap. The bus hailed him over a tannoy. "Hi, sorry to bother you, but was he a very good friend of yours?" The man did his best to ignore them and gripped his friend tighter. There was a polite pause while they waited for him to answer. After a few moments, another voice tried again. "Hi there. My wife and I were wondering if perhaps he'd previously saved your life, and now, obviously, you've failed to reciprocate, so..." The exile squeezed his eyes shut and rocked back and forth. "She thinks you might have been lovers. I told her not to be so silly, but, well, are you? Lovers, that is." With a shivering hand, he wiped the blood from his comrade's forehead and hairline, crudely cleaning him like a playful young son back from his muddy fun in the garden. "Is this thing on? Ah, yeah. G'day, we're from Matthew's Food Hall hockey team." The muffled chant of "Go Beavers!" in the background. "We just wanted to ask you, mate, if he had any last words. Did he say anything, or was he just, way too fucked up?" No response. Me again. Listen, my wife's now saying that perhaps you two weren't lovers, but that perhaps you secretly wanted to be, and, now it's too late and everything. Oh, okay. She says just nod your head if she's warm. Exhausted and broken, the exile lifted his face to the sky and released a long and sorrowful bawl. The bus pivoted slowly and started climbing away. The tannoy was still on. "Well, I think that was a yes. Don't you, dear?" The tourists swarmed around the pitiful figure left sobbing in the grass, competing with one another in a race to end his life. Antonio marched on.